That would be particularly difficult in an emergency, wouldn't it?
That's right. That's right. And the client group that we deal with are particularly vulnerable to self-harm behaviour, to suicidal behaviour.
We asked to see for ourselves inside Long Bay Hospital. Instead, corrective services allowed Stateline into Silverwater Jail.
This is a 15-bed assessment unit.
So why are you showing me this facility instead of the one at Long Bay?
The routine that we are proposing to put in place in the new Long Bay Hospital very closely resembles the routine that's in place in this centre.
A new forensic hospital is being built next to Long Bay for the psychiatric inmates. Patients there will come under the control of the health department and they won't be locked in cells at all. But it won't be ready for about 6 months. And until then, the patients will continue under the longer lockdown in the prison, though many of them will be in new cells like this, with TVs.
We had more time out of cells and we reduced it back in the centre when we observed that there were higher levels of agitation and adverse incidents occurring in the afternoons. So we reduced the time out of cells and found a corresponding and very positive response, which was a decrease in self-harm and also assault of and other disruptive behaviours.
So was the change for therapeutic reasons or was it a work practices issue?
Well, I think it's a case of two things coming together at the same time. So we were looking at reduced hours out of cells, but the decision for that was not based entirely on an economic rationale. It was also based on the fact that surveys of inmates indicated that a number of them preferred to be removed from face-to-face contact. But if you're in the correctional system, it can be fairly chaotic, and a lot of people like to have the time in their cells as opposed to being out when they're exposed to risks that they may perceive exist in that environment.
But inmates do have the choice of going to their cells to remove themselves from the rest of the inmate crowd.
They can, but they can't lock their cells.
Are you seriously saying that inmates actually want to be in their cells for longer?
I am. And what I would say from the literature is that what is useful is to have a variety of experiences. Some experiences that provide a lot of stimulation and opportunities for quiet time. We're trying to provide that balance here.
18 hours in a cell doesn't sound like a good variety, though.
Well, 18 hours in a cell does sound like a long time.
According to some experts, it's way too long for psychiatric patients. Among them, Professor Paul Mullen, who's Clinical Director of Victoria's Peak Forensic Mental Health Authority.
Left to themselves, the delusions and hallucinatory experiences become the sole way in which they understand and experience the world. The effect of this over any lengthy period is to potentially drive them further and further into their psychotic state.
The Aboriginal Justice Advisory Council calls the increased lockdown cruel, inhuman, degrading. The mental health charity SANE urges the New South Wales Government to walk the walk as well as talk the talk on mental health services. And now the Mental Health Council of Australia has written to the state government demanding action.
Having worked in prisons, I can tell you that attending to people's mental health problems early is a very good investment, because if you don't, you end up with greater problems in the prison, not only around management, but around the need for acute care, for hospital beds and for more intensive supervision. Isolating them further by locking them up at 4 o'clock is only going to make the situation worse and end up costing you more and costing the community more.
Other than the conjecture that people have made about what might happen, we've seen no evidence of people being driven crazy or harming themselves or all of those other things that are suggested might happen under this regime.
There are a lot of highly respected people, though, who are saying that there could be long-term consequences. Can you disregard all of that opinion?
I think there's been some misinformation about the environment that offenders will be managed in.
And what are the claims by the admittedly disturbed petitioners?
The author is someone who has been a vexatious complainant, who has provided the type of commentary that's included in those letters in that petition over a period of time, including the time that preceded the change of routine. And should evidence be brought to light that suggests that we are causing harm to people, then we will modify our approach accordingly. If you were asked to create an opera in just over a month, could you do it?